Sometimes when grabbing a show from my obnoxiously large collection, I come across one that's not so much a DVD as it is a time capsule. And not one of those cool time capsules with a message from the past, one of those lame ones that someone's already cracked open. As it turns out, the kid really wanted that He-Man action figure and then just stuffed it back in the ground after. You know the ones I'm talking about. This particular time capsule is Ayane's High Kick, an OVA that was released first in Japan in 1997, ran for 2 episodes, and then was promptly forgotten about. Part of that was due to the heyday of OVAs being 10 years prior to the show's release, and the other part of it was because it feels like it was a lot older. Interestingly enough, the Central Park Media release was only about a year later, which, considering what turnarounds used to be back then, was real fucking fast. I'm sure Nikatsu was more than happy to have some money back off of it, and the 2 episodes were easy to shove onto a VHS and then onto DVD in 1998. It would end up as a pack-in with other titles in their library as CPM circulated it over the next few years. You might think that you've seen these character designs before, but I assure you that they are all new. They just kind of look like everything else that came out that time. Ayane, she of the titular High Kick, is first introduced to us trying out for a pro wrestling league. Ooh, nice job, a 360 break your neck. Don't see that very often, at least not outside of AEW. It may or may not surprise you after that particular performance to find out that she's not very good at it. But never let being bad at something stop a dumbass shonen protagonist, right? So after falling out of wrestling, she's stopped by a guy who's got his eye on her legs. Please just stop. It's not helping. It's not better. Kunimitsu, this very distressingly shady kickboxing coach, wants to teach her how to fight, and at this point you would be forgiven for expecting her to show up on the side of a milk carton. Despite him being the skeeviest looking guy in the hemisphere, he is actually on the level and teaches her how to fight.
We have purposely trained him wrong, as a joke.
Honestly, I'm not sure how exactly pro wrestling transfers to kickboxing. Usually it's the other way around. Now, of course, I'm running into a problem already because there's a large chunk in this first episode dedicated to watching her kick and also punch. That may be on me, but the things that happen where the characters bond and train aren't really all that interesting to comment on because it's all in service to winning the next matchup. The fun part is watching it in action and seeing how it actually happens or gets countered or how the team recovers. Similarly, watching Ayane here just kind of swing for the fences is not that interesting to talk about. It's nice, the characters don't melt or go off model or anything, but what else you got? Look, there's a good reason that one of the features on the DVD is the ability to just go to one of the fight scenes. Now, I know that sounds dismissive of the genre, but this show doesn't really have the time to go into depth about kickboxing. I don't really know what kind of depth you could get into regarding this, to be perfectly honest. Especially since this show waffles really badly between this is horribly illegal and this is just another prize fight. And a reminder, she's 17 years old. In a prize fight with grown adults. Her first fight really nails down that Ayane's primary trait is resilience, because it sure as hell doesn't seem like it's skill. In spite of not understanding that this is a mixed martial arts fight, in spite of having the gloves put on her, and not understanding that she's not in a pro wrestling match, which would be very, very difficult with boxing gloves on, Ayane gives it a pretty good show, and then does an overhead suplex to a gal who's apparently clocking in at 180 pounds. And that's pretty impressive considering most anime girls clock in at about 180 ounces these days. Also, good job not getting killed by that suplex. She picked you up and dropped you right on your damn head, lady. That's a hell of a thing. Ayane's not exactly what I'd call a great worker in wrestling terms. She's risking huge brain damage to... Actually, you know what? Something tells me she doesn't have a whole lot to damage to start with. Now, some people might call that kind of cute in that dojiko way, but I have long tired of meathead characters. I know it's kind of a genre standby at this point, but when you can set your fucking watch to it, especially in this kind of show, this short form shit, again, I don't want to rag on it too hard because it's clearly a show made because someone wanted to put money into the OVA system and then didn't have enough to make good on it. I say this because it's going great guns and then just slams straight into a wall when there isn't a third episode, which is usually a signifier for this thing done run out of money. Near as I can tell, there was no catastrophic falling out with the company, so it just kinda fizzled. It's happened to much better shows, to be certain. That being said, it does have a lot of good moments in the actual fight scenes. Actually going for a clinch when she's getting rocked, that's smart, though she has to be told to do so. The fact that a good kick also will end someone's A, match, B, career, and C, life If they're not careful about that, they even bring up how dangerous that kind of attack is, and then they just kind of brazenly use it. That's to be expected in an anime, but to put it in perspective, an amateur boxer usually takes part in about 200 matches on the high side over the course of their career before they turn pro. After that, they get in about 2 to 6 fights a year depending on prestige, weight class, and skill level. For contrast, MMA fighters get in about 40 on the high side all career long. The human body only has so many times it can get battered before it gives out after all. So, everybody but Ayane is coming into this knowing that the next fight she gets in could be her last in more ways than one. And then she meets, not Naga, the woman who would be her next opponent. And if you thought this show had Rocky vibes to start with, oh boy, they continue here. Miyagawa, the rival with the Ojo-sama laugh, comes in wanting to fight Ayane for stealing her thunder. Meanwhile, the vice principal wants to kick Ayane out for breaking school rules against, I would assume, not getting in fights and also not having a part-time job. I guess she's getting paid for this, but at the same time, it's kind of pointless because I'm assuming that Ayane is already failing all of her classes. Again, there's definitely laws being broken here. I assume that there would have been more hijinks around this or around her mom finding out that she's doing fighting and getting worried or mad, but again, 2 episodes. On a side note, it really kind of looks like this old man is beating the brakes off of Princess Tutu in some scenes. By the time they actually do get to the next fight, with all the pageantry and nonsense this series is sporting in the entrances, I'm not entirely certain it's not pro wrestling. Or at least pro wrestling adjacent. Come on, hurry it up, sweetheart. We got places to be. Unsurprisingly, Rockette here gets rocked because she's not a kickboxer. Try to hold your surprise, folks. In spite of her target not being old enough to drink, Miyagawa turns Ayane into a bloody smear on the canvas for 3 rounds, because she's probably the closest thing this circuit has to a pro fighter. All of this makes me wonder if any of it is above board at all, or if it's fine because it's an unsanctioned prize fight. Even saying that makes me just not happy. Ayane looks like she's about to have a record of 1-1 and will be enjoying a very long hospital stay before the ref calls it. No, not because Ayane is getting her ass kicked, but because of a cut on Miyagawa's head from one of Ayane's high kicks. And this isn't a big gash either. Admittedly, you don't need a big cut on your forehead for it to leak blood like nobody's business, but this does feel a little weird. Maybe they were worried about it getting in her eye, or maybe that it might get hit again and really screw her up, but it feels really cheap. I wonder if down the road it would have been shown that somebody was paying off the ref to give Ayane wins or something, but that's a thought for another day. Maybe this show would have ended like Ashita no Joe just to be really fucked up, eh? The series mostly just feels like it was make work for a studio that needed something to do and was more than happy to take this on. The characters feel exactly how you'd expect them to. The art is nothing to write home about, but I like the old style because it's what I grew up with and what I'm used to. But it could also be mistaken for something that was almost a decade older because it's just kind of there. Included on the Barebones DVD are trailers for the original Grappler Baki and Voltage Fighter Gao Kaiser, so that should kind of tell you who they're aiming for as far as the audience is concerned. The show was just kind of there, and then it wasn't. It's kind of like eating a bowl full of marshmallow fluff. It's unassuming, it's kind of tasty, but it's ultimately unfulfilling and kind of bad. But getting one of these at an anime convention or used media shop is probably a decent use of about $5 if you spy it, or even just as a curio. There was also a single volume manga released in 1998 and was promptly forgotten about. If ever this became a full series, I don't think it would have been remembered with anything other than oh yeah, that one. It didn't do anything wrong, and then it didn't do anything right either. It just kind of was, and that probably made for enough for a quarterly report. And so it goes, so it goes. But hey, at least I made it all this way without making a feet pics joke. Wait. Damn it! Which would be very, very difficult with boxing gloves on. Hey, Ayane, how did you fight with boxing gloves on? You're so bad.